I think that flying is the ultimate form of meditation.
Say more.
Because you have to be 100% present, right? So when you're coming in for a landing, for example, right? It's not a car where you're in two-dimensional space, right? You're in three-dimensional space. So you have to control where you are laterally and vertically. And you're on a glide path, right? You're going into the runway and you want to stay at a 3-degree glide path. And the only thing you're thinking about is this landing.
Welcome back to Curiosity Class, the podcast where we break down complex topics into easy-to-understand ideas and bite-sized pieces. My name is Jeff Album, and I've been a curious person my entire life. Inspired by Albert Einstein's quote, "If you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough," we aim to make learning accessible and engaging. On this show, we're going to bring you experts from various fields, ranging from personal finance to physics, to help you understand everything from 401ks to how airplanes fly. So let's dive in and satisfy our curiosity together. Welcome back to another episode of Curiosity Class. I am honored and humbled and privileged to have my very good friend, pilot and certified flight instructor Yehuda Tenenbaum on today to talk to us about how in the heck do airplanes fly. Yehuda, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Glad to be here. Thanks for asking me to come on.
Thanks for showing up, man. So I know I'm really curious, and I think a lot of people are too, about like, everyone says, oh, lift, whatever, is how airplanes fly. What does that mean?
Well, the short answer is it's really magic, contrary to what
I knew it.
It's just magic. But yeah, anyways, I'll explain it and I'll try to break it down as simple as possible, okay?
For us laymen's.
Well, not laymen, just people who it's a new topic and there's a lot of principles that come into it, so make it as simple as possible, right? But the basic way that an airplane flies, so in very simple terms, so there's a principle that you need to first understand, and it's Bernoulli's principle, it's called. And that is basically if a liquid or air is moving faster, it's going to be at a lower pressure than air that's moving slower. Okay? So if you have air moving, if you have like what's called a Venturi tube, which is like, that's what the experiment was done with. So it was a tube and then a little choke in the tube, and then it got big again, right? So he measured the pressure in the.
So if you're looking, if you're just listening, it's kind of like an hourglass, right?
Exactly, kind of like an hourglass.
Okay.
And he put water through that tube, and measured the pressure in the choke area where the bottleneck, I guess would be called, where the the hourglass, and then measured the pressure in the two larger parts, and the pressure was lower in the part where the water was going faster, right?
Okay. So think higher speed, lower pressure.
Higher speed, lower pressure. Exactly.
Which is maybe for some people not at least for me, that's counterintuitive. I would think higher speed means higher pressure, but that's just me.
Very, very counterintuitive for me as well. When I was first learning this, I was very confused because I was like, shouldn't higher speed be higher pressure?
Right.
But that's not the case. It's the opposite.
Okay.
And I'm not a physicist, which I believe would be the right type of scientist. But I just understand it as a pilot should, right? But as pilots, we don't understand how to create the performance charts and the science, but we understand the basics of how it works, right? On like a 5th grade level.
Fair enough.
So if you look at a wing now, so let's say you go outside of the airplane and you walk to the tip of the wing, and now you're looking down the wing from the side.
Okay.
So you're looking towards the aircraft, you're on the right side of the aircraft, and you're looking down the wing towards the side. Now, you'll notice that the bottom of the wing is pretty much flat, and the top of the wing is curved. Okay. So what that means is there's more surface area on the upper surface of the wing than there is on the lower surface of the wing.
Okay, got it. So there's like literally more material.
More material, right? Because it's curved, right? It's like a hill. Sure. If you're driving a car and you're going in a straight road, you're gonna and then there's two roads next to each other. One road goes over a hill, and one road goes through the hill. There's
Yep.
more necessary on the road that goes over the hill, right? You're
Got you.
traveling
Got you.
slightly further. So two air molecules, or two pockets of air, the wing hits at the same time. Some will go over the wing, and some will go under the wing, but they both meet at the other side of the wing at the same time, right?
Okay.
So the leading edge and the trailing edge of the wing, right? So the front of the wing is the leading edge, and the trailing edge is the back of the wing. So the air that hits the leading edge of the wing will all meet back together on the trailing edge at the same time.
Okay.
And in order for that to happen, the air that's going above the wing has to be going faster than the air going below the wing.
Got it. Okay.
Right? And now, what did we say about the pressure of the air moving faster or slower?
Faster air means lower pressure.
Right. So what happens when you have a higher pressure and a lower pressure area? Where do objects tend to go?
To areas of lower pressure.
Areas of lower pressure, right? So now you have higher pressure below the wing, lower pressure above the wing. Now the wing wants to go to the lower pressure area.
Wow. And so that's what lift is.
That's exactly what lift is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you said it was magic.
I mean, this is what we tell people, but really this is all, none of this is true. It's all really just magic. Flight school is really a magician training school.
It's so interesting. Like, even hearing that, it still blows my mind every time I'm on a plane and I sit by the window and look at the wing when we're taking off. And I think I can intuitively understand, like, okay, there's this thing called lift, and the air is moving faster and slower and what have you. But
Yeah.
it still blows my mind every time that, like, holy smokes, we're flying.
Yeah, it's insane. It's so cool. It blows.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a pilot? Like, what initially sparked that in you?
I've always known I wanted to be a pilot. Where I grew up in Michigan was pretty close to Detroit Metro Airport.
Okay.
I mean, not incredibly close, but we were right under the approach path for one of the runways. And as a kid, I always would see the planes flying over, and I knew I just was going to be in one day flying it. And so it's always what I wanted. And then I had Microsoft Flight Simulator as a kid, spent a lot of time on there. Somehow I was entertained by putting the airplanes on autopilot and just sitting in front of the computer for 5 hours.
Like what most kids were doing, right?
Yeah, well, most kids do. Exactly. Yeah, the only video game I've ever had.
Was Microsoft Flight Simulator?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I've never been a gamer, just an airplane enthusiast.
Wow, okay. Man, so you're literally living your dream.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, every time I get up there, it's just, I can't believe I'm flying.
What did it feel like the first time that you took control on a solo? So there's no one else in the plane with you. What did that feel like?
First solo?
Yeah.
I sweated through all my clothes. I was so nervous. We have like a little, it's kind of like it's called a knee board, right? So it's like a clipboard that's kind of strapped to my thigh so that I can write down instructions or things in the airplane. And I was so sweaty because of nerves and because it was hot that I couldn't even write down paper anymore. It got so sad. It was one of the scariest. I was really, really scared that whole time. And it's interesting to see, as a pilot or in any skill you develop, you get better over time, right?
Sure.
And so I remember at the time thinking, I was just talking to my instructor, who he was my instructor through most of my training just yesterday. And I remember doing this solo and thinking, I nailed that landing. That was such a good landing. But thinking back to it, it was not good. Like it was smooth. It was smooth, but things about it were not good,
Got it.
Yeah.
When you're about to take off or when you're coming in for landing, I guess, like, how many things do you have to hold in your head? Like, how many things are you thinking about at any given time?
This is I'm going to reference the same conversation from yesterday to answer this. But I think that flying is the ultimate form of meditation. because
Say more.
you have to be 100% present, right? So when you're coming in for a landing, for example, right? It's not a car where you're in two-dimensional space, right? You're in three-dimensional space. So you have to control where you are laterally and vertically. And you're on a glide path, right? You're going into the runway and you want to stay at a 3-degree glide path. And the only thing you're thinking about is this landing, right? I'm looking outside. Am I going the right direction? I'm looking at my speed. I got one hand on the yoke, which is the control wheel, and then I have one hand on the throttle. And then my feet are controlling the rudders.
Okay.
Right? So at a certain point it becomes, muscle memory, what does what. I'm not thinking of every input I'm doing, but I'm constantly looking between the tachometer, which is for the RPM.
Okay.
And the speed,
and
the airspeed.
What does the RPM do for you? Like, why is that important?
So the RPM, so when we're talking about RPM, I'm talking about the propeller RPM, right? So rotation per minute of the airplane's propeller.
Got it. Got it.
For a given attitude, so where the nose is pointing up and down, right?
Okay. That's called attitude?
That's called attitude, the attitude of the airplane. So where the nose is in reference to the horizon, up and down.
Oh, and is if it's up 3 degrees, is that +3? And then if it's below 3 degrees, is that -3?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
It's not, yeah, that is the case, but it's not something that we kind of would reference like -3 or +3. It would be, we'd say like 3 degrees up, or 3 degrees.
Got you.
It's not untrue what you're saying. I've just never heard it said like that. That's what I'm saying. But for a given attitude and a given power setting, right? So the planes that I'm flying right now, and the ones that this is what I did for my private pilot's license, and part of my commercial and part of my instrument rating, are Piper Warriors. Okay, so PA 28161 for anyone who wants to look it up. Very light single engine aircraft, and there's kind of known power settings for particular performance, right? So the pitch of the airplane plus the power setting.
Wait, sorry. Is pitch the same as attitude?
Yeah,
the same.
Sorry, pitch is the same thing as attitude, right? So the pitch plus the setting of power that we put in equals a given performance. So
is power based on RPMs?
Yeah, so the power is based on the throttle, which is controlling the RPM of the engine.
Got it. Okay.
Essentially. So if I set my RPM via the throttle to 2,350 RPM, and I keep the nose at approximately 2 degrees up, I'll have level flight. So I'll maintain my altitude, right? I won't go up or down. And I'll be at approximately 95 knots. So
got it. Okay.
So when it comes to landing, I know that if I want to be in a 3-degree glide path and I want to have a normal descent at the speed that I want, I know what my power setting is.
Got it. So, okay, talk to us a little. What does 3-degree glide path mean? Break that down.
Yeah. So you ever see airplanes coming in for landing, and from the ground point of view, you don't really think that you think they're just going down, right? But there's actually a very standard glide path. Right. So not every airport, but the majority of airports have what's called a standard 3-degree glide path. So that means that the airplanes are coming in 3 degrees from the touchdown point, right? So if you measure the angle between the ground and the path that the airplanes are coming in on, that should be approximately 3 degrees.
Got it. Okay. But that's not necessarily what the attitude or pitch of the airplane is, right? Because every time you see an airplane land, the nose kind of looks like it's up.
That's correct. So this is going to get more complicated.
Okay.
But there's the pitch of the airplane, and then there's something called angle of attack, right? So when an airplane is going very fast, it's pretty much the nose is pretty much pointing the same direction that the airplane is going.
Okay.
Right? When it's going very fast. But when it's going slower, there's less air going above and below the wings, right, per unit of time. Therefore, there's less of a pressure differential, right? Because
Got it.
pressure differential that causes lift.
Sure.
So now there's less of a pressure differential. So two things increase lift, okay? Speed, or the angle at which the wind, the relative wind, hits the wing.
Okay.
So the slower you go, the greater your angle of attack, which is the angle that the relative wind hits the wing.
Okay.
To maintain the same level of lift, right? So you have two things that can contribute to an increased lift. It's either increasing your airspeed or increasing your angle of attack. So airplanes into land are coming in slow, right?
Got it.
They're at their slowest point of their flight. So now, and instead of wanting to, in order to increase their lift or to maintain enough lift, right, to maintain that 3 degrees, they don't want to come down nose down and be going very fast.
Right.
They'll be touching down as slow as possible. So therefore, increase their angle of attack.
Got it. And I'm going to go out on a limb. Is there a known power setting to do that? So like, depending on what type of plane you're flying in your pre-flight brief, do you kind of discuss that? And you're like, okay, based on, what plane I'm flying and what the weather is, I need to know what,
power setting.
What power setting to be on to maintain a 3-degree glide path?
So in general, for most aircraft, there are known power settings.
Okay.
Right? So in our aircraft, for the final approach speed, which is 63 knots, that's not so relevant, but just throw that out there. To maintain a 3-degree glide path should be approximately 1800 on the RPM. Okay?
Got it. Okay.
It changes all the time because the power setting, there's multiple reasons why it changes. First of all, when it's hotter, the airplane does not perform as well. Therefore, to maintain the same level of performance, you'll need more power.
Got it. Okay.
Also, when it's more humid, you'll need more power. On the opposite side of the coin, if it's very cold and dry air, you may need less.
Got it. Okay.
Right? And then additionally, if you have a very strong headwind, right? Because you know how I've been saying airspeed?
Yeah, I want to get into this. Yeah.
So airspeed is not the speed you're going over the ground. So when a 3-degree glide path is not 3 degrees in reference to the air moving, it's 3 degrees in reference to the ground. So if you have zero wind, that power and the performance and the atmospheric conditions are as planned, you might have it might be exactly as you calculate. 1800, 63 knots coming in for landing. Perfect. It's never the case. It's never that way. Right?
Okay.
You have a baseline, but it's never that way. So when there's a lot of wind coming towards you, now your airspeed, if there's 23 knots of headwind, your speed over the ground is going to be 40 knots, right? So if you're going to be going down at that same setting, you're going to be going...
Wait, okay. So first off, a headwind is a wind coming into your nose.
Correct. A wind,
right? Okay.
Against the
wind. Okay.
Right.
Got it. And
slowing you down.
And knots is just can we think of knots in terms of miles per hour, or are those different?
A knot is 1.15 miles.
Okay.
The nautical mile. It's just the ships and airplanes use knots instead of miles per hour for the most part.
Got you.
But it's just another unit of measurement. It doesn't, it's not like a whole new concept.
Got it. Okay. So you said you have a headwind, so a wind coming into your nose of how fast did you say?
Let's say, let's say 20. I said 23. Okay. So a direct headwind would subtract that from your airspeed.
And so your airspeed, we wanted it to be 63 knots. Right. And so now we have this headwind coming in, which is 20. So it's basically like you have one speed going to the right, the other speed going to the left. So they subtract out. Right. So you say, okay.
Cancel each other out. Right. If you're, how in the airports they have the moving walkways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you walk with it, well, now your speed is faster, right? But your speed that you're walking is the same.
Oh, that's such a good way to. Okay. Yeah. I love that example.
Well, now your speed that you're walking is the same, but you're going to be going slower in the direction you want to go.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how a headwind and a tailwind affect an airplane.
Oh, dude, that's so good. Okay.
Yeah, in the same way, either you're walking with the conveyor belt or against it.
Or against it. And we've all been there walking against it.
Yeah, when you're a little kid and you just want to see if you can do it.
Or last week, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, or last week. You're still a kid. It's okay. Yeah, so think about it on the 3-degree glide path. So now, if you have a really strong headwind, you're going to be going slower over the ground, but descending at the same rate.
Okay.
And that's going to be much more than 3 degrees now.
Got it.
You have to have more power if there's that much of a headwind.
Got it. Which makes some sort of intuitive sense, right? If a wind is coming at you and you're trying to land, you need to probably have more power to physically get over the runway.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then the 3-degree glide path, it's stable. I don't know exactly why that became uniform, but it's just the universal way of doing things. And it's also like there's good rules of thumb. So a mile off the runway, a mile before the runway, you'll be at 300 feet.
Got it. Okay.
Runway 600 feet.
Got it.
And so on.
So I, similar to you, played Microsoft Flight Simulator as a kid.
Nice.
Full disclosure, full transparency. And something I always wondered about and still have no idea what they are or why they exist is flaps.
Flaps. Okay.
So what are flaps? What's the reason for flaps? What's the purpose of flaps? Take it away.
All right. So first, let's say what flaps are.
Okay.
Because you can look out at the wing when you're flying, and there's 3 different control surfaces that you'll see moving.
Okay.
Right? Not in our Piper Warriors, there's only 2. But in the planes that you're generally a passenger on, there's 3. Okay?
Okay.
There's flaps, spoilers, and ailerons.
The last one's my favorite. How do you pronounce it? Ailerons?
Aileron. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask me how to spell anything, please. It's one of my greatest weaknesses. But so those are 3 things. So when you land and you look out the window and the wing just pops up, something folds up on top of the wing?
Yeah.
Those are spoilers because they're spoiling lift. Okay?
Got it. Okay.
And they're spoiling lift and they help the plane stop. So those are not flaps. There's another thing that you may or may not notice, but sometimes when you're in middle of the flight or you're just flying, right? There's no flaps up. There's no flaps down. You look out at the end of the wing and there's something close to the end of the wing that looks kind of like a flap that moves up and down. And you'll notice it when the airplane's turning, and that's called an aileron. And that's what controls the airplane's bank. And bank is when the airplane leans left to right.
Okay.
Okay. And then the flaps are going to be between the ailerons and where you're sitting. So those are closer. So that's called the inboard side of the wing versus the outboard side.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think outboard. So the inboard side of the wing is where the flaps are. Now, what the flaps do is they curve down, right? And they do a few things. They allow in all the FAA written tests, they ask the question of what is the purpose of flaps? What are the purpose of flaps? And the correct answer for all these multiple choice questions are to allow the pilot to make a steeper descent without an increase of airspeed.
Got it. Okay.
Is a reason, right? Because anything, when you're sitting in a car and you put your hand out the window and you put it flat with the wind, just horizontal, vertically, your hand has to go back, right? It's
right.
More wind resistance. So that's kind of what flaps do to make the plane slow down, so the pilot can go steeper but not faster.
Got it.
That's one thing.
Got it.
They also increase lift in a couple ways because they increase the camber of the wing, right? So now the wing has more of a curve.
And more surface area too, right?
More surface area on some wings, depends on the kind of flaps. So generally the kind of flaps on the planes that you're passenger on, yes. The plane that I'm flying, they do not increase the surface area. They just increase the camber of the wing.
Wow. Okay.
You can see me, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I froze for a sec. Yeah. So generally, so they increase on the planes that you're flying in. They both increase the surface area of the wing and the camber of the wing, um, and they also deflect some air downwards, right? And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So deflecting air downwards also adds a little bit of lift, kind of. That's like a very small part of it,
Okay.
but that is a small effect of flaps. Um, but essentially, they allow, without all the explanation and the science to it, they allow the plane to fly slower.
Got it. Okay. And so I'm going to try to explain it back to you. Could a reason be also that, like you said, to allow the pilot to go steeper without an increase in, was it airspeed or ground speed?
Airspeed.
Without an increase in airspeed. So if you're needing to land, you can descend faster while not increasing your speed. Is that
That is true. Which
Okay.
kind of sounds like it contradicts the increase in lift thing, doesn't it?
Right, a little bit.
Yeah, it does sound like that. It's a little confusing, but when you go, it's hard. It's kind of complicated.
That's fifth grade. That's not third grade.
Yeah, we're talking third grade here. Let's not go to fifth grade. I'm not there.
We're not skipping 2 grades.
Yeah, but
All right.
The short answer is it does both.
Okay. Cool. Man, I can't wait for 5th grade.
Yeah.
So, all right, something I think we've all experienced, and at least speaking personally, freaks me out is turbulence.
Yeah.
Walk us through. What is turbulence? What's the deal with it? Do we need to be afraid of it? As you and I have had multiple conversations about this, I'm terrified of turbulence. Walk us through it.
Almost all of turbulence you do not have to worry about.
Okay.
Pretty much all turbulence you don't have to worry about. There are different kinds of turbulence.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the turbulence that generally you're experiencing in an airplane as a passenger, that are generally perfectly safe. Okay.
Okay.
And then if you want, I can talk about other turbulence which you'll be very, very unlikely to ever experience. But that could be dangerous.
Okay. Well, yeah, let's not talk about that one.
Let's not talk about that? Okay. But I will tell you that you probably will never experience it, especially in a big plane.
Okay.
But think about this. If you're in a boat and you're on top of the water, right? Hopefully, right? That's where a boat belongs. And it's a little choppy. The water's moving. It's a little scary, right? But for the most part, you're not really concerned until it gets like really stormy.
Right.
But now think of it as you're in a submarine in the water. Now that same movement of the water is not as scary. Right? Because you're encompassed in it. Right?
Sure.
So now think of the air in the same way. Right? Air is constantly moving in different directions. And we can get into why some of it moves, right? But for the most part, you're in it. You're not on it like a boat. You're in it like a submarine, not on it like a boat. So it's just the air moving around and it's shaking the airplane, but you're not going to flip over or anything weird like that.
Got it.
It's just moving in the air. Okay? It's like I've another analogy where think of the air as jello and you're something inside the jello and the jello jiggles, but that doesn't mean the thing inside it is just as stable. So the airplane's getting
sure. Got it. And why, like, I don't know if this is real or just subjective, but I feel like every time it's more common that I'll feel turbulence when you take off, right? Or come into land. Like turbulence in the middle of the flight, I feel like is less common. Is that accurate or no?
Yeah, I think at higher altitudes the air is smoother.
Okay.
In general, not always, but in general. Also, have you noticed that when you fly into you live in Austin, right? So when you fly into Austin or fly out of Austin in middle of the day, in the summer, you have the worst turbulence.
Right.
As opposed to late at night in this winter where it's probably very smooth.
Right.
So think about this. The sun is constantly heating the Earth's surface,
Okay.
right? And different types of like cement versus water versus trees will absorb and radiate heat differently.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the air above a parking lot might be super hot, and then you fly above some trees, and then it's not hot, and then you fly above water, and it is hot. So now you have different temperatures of air, and hot air will rise fast, right? Hot air
Mm-hmm.
is rising, and cool air is descending. But I mean, in the summer, nothing's descending, right? It's all
Right.
rising different at just different rates for the most part. Um, so what happens is you're flying, you have updrafts and downdrafts. So the air is not just moving hard side to side, it's moving up and down. So you're
Got
flying.
it.
I notice this whenever I'm flying here, right? I fly over these little ponds and boom, I get like shaken. When I fly over the turnpike or I-95 and there's just a bump right when I fly over it.
Wow. Because
And
it's radiating heat faster. That's a higher
right.
updraft.
Yeah, so it's called a thermal.
A thermal. Oh, okay. That's like what birds use. No?
That's what birds use, right? So
Got it.
generally, I mean, I fly near, if I fly near the birds, which I try not to do, there's
Right.
a lot of updrafts, right? The air is moving up, and I start to rise, and then you need less power to maintain the same level altitude, right?
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, like it makes a lot of sense now that you're saying it. It's like, yeah, when it's hot in the middle of the day, you take off, it's usually pretty bumpy. When you're coming into land, is it also, because I know you said originally humidity affects that too?
Affects the wind.
Well, just like the bumpiness. I feel like when I fly into a place that is less humid, it's drier. I feel like there's less turbulence as opposed to if it's humid and hot, that feels like the bumpiest.
Um, well, generally, hot air can hold more moisture, right?
Okay.
So I guess I would just I'm not sure, but what I would assume is since hot air can have more moisture, it's not that the more moist air is causing more turbulence. It's that when there's moist air, that means there's warm air. Therefore, it's generally going to be more turbulent for that
Got
reason.
it. Got it. Okay. Okay. So TLDR, we don't need to be afraid of turbulence.
Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't know.
Okay. Are
I mean,
you
there's.
ever
I'm sorry.
go for it.
No, I was going to say there's been a few instances in history, right? Like just a few months ago, I think it was a Singapore Airlines plane that lost a lot of altitude really fast. Um, there are some very, very rare occasions that it could be date unsafe.
Hmm.
But the chances of you encountering that are almost zero.
Got it. Okay. Do you, when you're flying or when you're a passenger on a plane and you get some rough weather and it's bumpy, you're totally fine? You're not freaking out or anything?
Yeah, zero, zero. Yeah, I'm not freaking out at all.
That's
Just
so
the other day,
cool.
I was flying, just doing some practice maneuvers, and in Florida, there's basically thunderstorms every day in the
Okay.
afternoon. And you know, we were flying outside of the thunderstorm, but there was a really big thunderstorm that I was just avoiding. And when you fly in front of a thunderstorm, like in its path, you get some bad wind.
Okay.
And I had to get in front of it to go to back to the airport. And it was knocking me around. It was really knocking. And these small planes, it really knocks you, but it's not unsafe. It's not.
Right.
It's just for if you were a passenger, you might be a little alarmed, right? You might
Right.
bump your head on the ceiling, but you're
Wow.
okay.
That's so cool. I mean, not the bumpy part, but just so cool that you don't get freaked out by it. I don't know.
I mean, you can't get freaked out if you're flying an airplane.
Right. That's fair and probably good that that's how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, if you get freaked out, the whole idea of being a pilot and flying an airplane is about maintaining composure and staying present.
Right.
Back to that meditation thing.
Right. So
Yeah.
can you walk us through the levels? Like what does it take to become a pilot? What are the different because you mentioned like instrument rating. Like, what is that? What are the levels
Love.
and certifications?
So there's licenses and ratings. Okay.
Okay.
So there's a private pilot's license, which is the very first license, right? So you get your student pilot's license, or there's certificates and ratings. I'm sorry, certificates and ratings. But the private pilot's license is a certificate, and the commercial
Okay.
pilot is a certificate. It's not a
Okay.
license. Okay. I think so. I'm slightly unsure in the semantics, but so you get your student pilot certificate, which is basically just it doesn't mean so much, right? You don't really have any, you have zero privileges with it.
Okay.
If your instructor signs you off to solo, you can do a solo flight, but
Okay.
otherwise, take passengers with you or anything like that. So you start off your training, and the very first milestone you do from any training is your solo, your very first solo. Then after your solo, there's more training that you do, and then you take your private pilot check ride. The check ride is the equivalent of your driver's test, okay? Just for fun,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So you take that test, and assuming you pass, you're awarded your private pilot's license. Now, a private pilot with only a private pilot's license can only fly in weather that they can see. Okay? So they
Okay.
have so the definition of it's called visual flight rules, so VFR conditions.
Okay.
Um, so visual meteorological conditions, VMC. And the definition of that is 3 miles visibility, 1,000 foot ceilings, and 3 miles visibility.
Okay.
Okay. So in general. So if the airport is reporting 3 miles visibility and reporting ceilings of at least 1,000 feet, a private pilot can fly as long as he stays within visual flight rule conditions.
Okay.
Okay. Now that means he can't fly in clouds. He or she, they can't fly in clouds. Can't fly if they can't see. Right, 3 miles. Um, that's essentially it. Right. Now, then you can go and get what's called your instrument rating. So your instrument rating allows you to fly by reference to the instruments. You need you have to be in touch with air traffic control. You have to get specific clearances for that, but it allows you to, with air traffic control clearances, fly in controlled airspace in conditions where you can't see.
Got it.
Only,
Okay.
right? But still, as a private pilot with an instrument rating, you cannot get paid to fly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? You can't get paid to fly. So the next thing you would do is get what's called your commercial pilot's license. And the instrument rating that you got attached to your private pilot's license comes with you to the commercial pilot license. So now, if you had got your instrument rating, now you'll be a commercial pilot with an instrument rating.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay.
Right. And so that's what I did. I started private pilot, got my instrument rating, then I got my commercial pilot's license. Now, a commercial pilot can get paid to fly, but not for an airline.
Okay.
That you need an airline transport pilot license, an ATP.
Got it. Okay.
And we can talk about that requirement in a moment if you'd like. But now the next step would be you need to get a multi-engine rating as well. So a commercial pilot with an instrument rating can only fly a single engine aircraft, okay?
Okay.
Unless you get a multi-engine rating or multi-engine add-on to your commercial pilot's license.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay.
So I went and did that. So I learned how to fly a twin engine plane, a plane with two engines. So that would be a commercial pilot's license, airplane single engine land, airplane multi-engine land with an instrument rating.
Got it. Okay.
And then I went and got my certified flight instructor rating.
So it's another rating on top of your commercial pilot's license.
Yes, but it's attached to it. It's another one that's
attached.
On the actual rating, it says valid when accompanied with commercial pilot's license number, whatever number my pilot's license is.
Gotcha.
And then in order to get to ATP minimums to be an airline transport pilot, there's many requirements, but one of them is having 1,500 flight hours.
Okay. And when does that clock start? Is it 1,500 from the first time you ever get in a plane? Is it
The very first time?
the very first time? Okay.
Yeah, the very first time. That's when it starts.
And so as you're doing this training, assuming you have a way to track that time, right?
Yeah, so I have a logbook. Every time
Okay.
I fly, I log the date, I log the tail number of the aircraft, the type of aircraft, where I went, how long I flew for, what kind of flying it was, night, day, instrument, if it was flight training, how many landings I did. Yeah.
Got it. Man, that's so cool.
Yeah, I love it. I think I'm so lucky to be able to do it. I think it's
Dude,
one of the coolest things to do.
I feel like every person looks at airplanes and they're like, that's really cool. You know, like you look at a plane and you think you kind of understand, like, okay, I get it. And then you go to an airport and you look at a plane and you're like, man, that's big. Like that is a huge thing. How does it fly?
It's mind blowing. And the crazy thing is, all airplanes, no matter how big they are, fly the same way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
it's just an airplane. All the principles that apply to the small plane I fly now, they apply to the big airplanes. The same things.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on and for teaching. I feel like I learned a ton.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you gave me this opportunity. I hope that I explain things well.
Absolutely. You're an amazing teacher. Can people follow you? Where's a good place for them to follow you or to reach out if they have questions or want to get in contact?
I mean, they can always follow my Instagram. I'm not very active on it. But it's YUDAT1, UDAT1. It's a plan.
Okay.
But that's my Instagram. People feel free to follow me. I'm very inactive. I answer messages.
All right, cool. You answer DMs. That's what they're called, right? DMs?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I'm also very not active on Instagram.
No, you're not even on it. Not active.
Yeah, I deleted the app from my phone.
Yeah.
All right, we'll link to that in the description. And Yehuda, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, and I can't wait to fly with you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate you bringing me on here. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.